Another day, another police brutality story, another unarmed black man who didn't have to die is dead. And this story has two wrinkles to it. Racism, of course, but mental illness as well. And it happened right here in New York, in a supposed liberal haven. It just goes to show that these biases run deep and they run across state lines, but here are the details of this story. Police officers in New York City fatally shot a black man who was pointing what appeared to be a gun at them on Wednesday, police said. The object turned out to be a metal pipe with a knob on the end. The man reportedly had bipolar disorder. Officers responded to 3 911 calls at around 4:40 p.m. describing a man wielding a silver firearm and pointing it at people on the street on a corner in the Crown Heights neighborhood in Brooklyn, the NYPD chief of department, Terrence Monahan, told reporters. The man, identified by the New York Times as 34-year-old Cited Vassell, was pronounced dead at Kings County Hospital. Vassell's father, Eric Vassell, told the Times that his son had bipolar disorder and had been hospitalized multiple times in recent years. Look, I'll be fair here. They got 911 calls. I understand that the officers have a tough job and that the shower head metal thing he was carrying could have looked like a gun. But this witness account seems to indicate that they took very little precautionary measures when it came to shooting this man down. Jackbot Hins, 40, told the New York Daily News that he witnessed the shooting and said officers did not warn Vassell before opening fire. They just hopped out of the car, Hins told the newspaper. It's almost like they did a hit. They didn't say please. They didn't say put your hands up. Nothing. All he did was just walk around the neighborhood, 38-year-old Andre Wilson, who said he knew Vassell for 20 years, told the Daily News. He speaks to himself. Usually he has an orange Bible or a rosary in his hand. He never had a problem with anyone. Every cop in this neighborhood knows him, resident John Fuller told the Times, saying police should have been familiar enough with Vassell to not shoot him. 3 of the 4 officers who fired at Vassell were not in uniform, Monahan said. He told reporters that they fired a total of 10 rounds at Vassell. None of them were wearing body cameras. So one of the officers was in uniform, but was not wearing a body camera. The other 3 were in plain clothes and shot 10 rounds at this mentally ill man, who they would have known was mentally ill if we had some community policing in this country. But let's center on the body camera conversation for a second. The NYPD is in the middle of a body camera rollout right now as a part of a de Blasio initiative. Some of the officers have to wear them at this point, some of them don't. But the goal is, by the end of 2018, all of these precincts that you see here will be blue. This shooting took place in the 71st precinct, around the border of the 67th precinct. Both of those precincts are in the middle of a partial rollout of the body cameras, which means that there is a chance that this officer should have been wearing a body camera, but not necessarily so. Phase 1 of the rollout of body-worn cameras is complete, and there are approximately 1,300 officers equipped with cameras in 20 patrol precincts. As of December 2017, Phase 2 was implemented, equipping officers on all tours of duty with cameras. By the end of 2018, all patrol precincts, housing police service areas, and transit districts will be equipped with body-worn cameras. Officers must record certain events, including all uses of force, all arrests and summonses, all interactions with people suspected of criminal activity, all searches of persons and property, any call to a crime in progress, some investigative actions, and any interaction with emotionally disturbed people. We obviously don't know all the facts yet, but if this officer in uniform was supposed to be wearing a body camera as a part of this partial rollout, he should have certainly been recording this instance. It checks off almost everything that I just read, that the NYPD lists as precursors for body camera recording. But it is still frustrating to me that after all these police shootings, body cameras are being implemented so slowly in New York. They should be doing it right away. And you'll be shocked to hear this. Police unions are actually claiming that the rollout is too quick and maybe shouldn't be done at all. In January, Mayor Bill de Blasio and Police Commissioner James O'Neill announced plans to equip all police officers and detectives on patrol with body cameras by the end of the year. That's more than 18,000 of them. The Patrolmen's Benevolent Association opposes the cameras, arguing they violate officers' rights. The union also questions whether they produce a meaningful change in the interaction between police officers and civilians on the street. In fact, that union is suing the city to prevent the body camera rollout. That union represents almost 2/3 of the police officers in the city. And conservatives wonder why we're skeptical about them being open to accountability, officers, and why the communities don't trust them and see them as an occupying force, not a protecting one. Because they kill black men disproportionately in their communities, and they don't record them on body cams and don't do it in their uniform. That's insane. How are the officers allowed to get away with this? And they might. They're not in uniform. If Cited, even if he was in the right state of mind, how was he supposed to know the weight of the threat? There were 4 cops. Only one of them looked like a cop. So that brings me to another important point: mental illness. We all know how police disproportionately kill black people in this country. We have seen the statistics if you're paying attention. Black Americans are around 13% of the population, but 31% of people killed by police. Mental illness, though, played a role in 1/4 of all the police shootings in 2017, according to data compiled by the Washington Post. And according to the Treatment Advocacy Center, people with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed during a police encounter than other civilians approached or stopped by law enforcement. This is a police training issue on many, many levels. 1, they are trained to shoot first, ask questions later. Their safety cannot be threatened at all, even if it means taking the life of another. Secondly, they are thus way more likely to take a life of another based on their biases, often racial. And thirdly, they are also completely unprepared to deal with mental illness. Absolutely ill-equipped. They see someone acting strange, and the instant response isn't compassion, it's threat. We've created a police force that is heavily armed and trained to respond to threats instead of keeping the community safe. That is the emphasis instead of safety. This isn't about officers being bad apples or bad people even, because as a progressive, I tend to think that injustices are perpetuated by or perpetrated, really, by institutional incentives, not people being good or evil like a Disney movie. That's why the institutions need to change. And yes, I want justice in this case too, but let's not lose the forest through the trees. Policing and the attitudes and incentives within the profession need to be altered wholesale before we get any meaningful progress.